Now I remember why we don't come up here often.
Was that?
It's busy.
Oh, yeah. Gunner's laughing at your busy statement. He's from Dallas, so our traffic is nothing like that place for sure. Or heck, even our Oklahoma City office is considerably worse. All right, Josh, you got me? Am I good and all that?
Yep.
Okay. Ta-da. Make sure you guys can kind of sort of see me here. All right, you guys all with me there in Utah? Well, and Colorado. Robert, you're Colorado, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and everybody else is Utah. All right. Well, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. Going to try to do the around the room. So just so that you guys know, on Zoom, we can all see you. So pretend you see them. But so we'll just start on this side of the table. Tell us where you're from, what you're doing here.
Here for training. First off, Christian Arvizo. Here for training. Let's see. From Stillwater.
Gonna be okay. All right.
Yeah.
So gonna be at the Oklahoma City office. Okay. Or back and forth Tulsa too. You can kind of do them all.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. And an OSU fan, which we'll try to forgive.
Sure.
We'll do our best.
I live.
All right. Gunner.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gunner Adrian. I came here to sell some roofs.
There we go.
I came from Dallas, Texas. That's it.
That's it. All right. You guys are man of a lot of words. All right. Next.
My name's David Hardbarger, Gulfport, Oklahoma, and I'm here to sell roofs.
All right.
Callie Sanders, which I know he hates that. We're married. I just have to change my name.
Okay.
From Colcord.
Okay.
Training.
Colcord. I'm gonna have to. I've always said Concord, so apparently I've screwed that up for years. All right, Robert, you're first up, just because well, you're the one on the TV right now.
Rob. I go by Rob.
Okay, Rob, gotcha.
Yeah, I'm from Denver, born and raised. So, yeah.
All right, and you've already been with us for 3 weeks.
Yeah, this is my fourth week.
Fourth week. Okay. All right.
Yeah, just had my first adjuster meeting last week.
Let's go.
Nice.
Get approved.
So, yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll see a contract on that pretty quick. Nice. All right, Steven, you're next.
Hello, Steve Bates. I'm originally from Connecticut. I moved to Salt Lake about 3-4 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to change scenery, and I love the nature here and dirt biking, so I'm in Salt Lake.
Dirt biking, like vroom vroom dirt biking, or you got to pedal it yourself?
I like everything. I like from dirt bike.
Okay, much better. All right, motors are better than leg powered. All right, Brian.
I'm Brian. I'm from Utah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're going.
I'm from Utah, and I'm just here to be a part of a good company and a good team.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to share a screen and get rolling on this thing for you guys. Start with this. You guys will have to forgive me. I am not the sharpest tool in the shed when it comes to technology, so you guys got to cut me a little bit of slack. All right. You guys see everything on the screen? Okay. All right. So as you guys all know and stated, we are first priority. You guys are here to sell some roofs, and I need to get y'all some pads and pens and so on and so forth. Gunner, I got you one already, right? Okay. There you go. You're already pinned up. You need a pen?
I got a pen.
Got a pen? All right. Okay, so we are first priority. We are a roofing company, which hopefully you guys know and understand that already, or it's going to be a long time. So here's what you can expect from us, okay? So you are going to be given the knowledge to be a top earner in this industry. So what is a top earner in this industry? A top earner in this industry is anywhere between $150,000 to $200,000. So off of what you're going to learn in the next 3 days, guarantee you 100% you will have the knowledge you need to do so. Okay. Next is who we are and then what we're about. A little bit about me too, since I'm going to be the gigantic talking head for the next 3 days, right? And then also God's promises and how to apply his word to this industry, but also your life. Okay. So here's what you need. And this is a very short list. It's very simple. And it is very simple for a very simple reason. Because it is this simple. Okay. One, you got to put the work in. That is literally the hardest part. The difference between the guys who are, when I say top earners of the industry, the difference between top and everybody else, they put the work in every day, point blank period, end of story. Like that is literally the only difference. So like perfect example, out of last week's training group, actually the guy with the least amount of talent did the most. So talent is good, right? But putting in the work is absolutely the most important thing in this industry, period. You do that, trust me, you're going to be good, okay? And giving the effort. It's kind of two parts, but the effort's a little bit more than the work, okay? When I say put in the work, we have to do the actual things, right? So all the things you have to do to be selling a roof, but this is the actual effort. So like, what are you putting in while you're here in this classroom? When you're not out beating the streets, climbing roofs, are you getting knowledge? Are you trying to get better on yourself? Because what I can tell you that is it doesn't make sense. And I heard this a lot when I started this industry. I'm like, I don't need any of this crap. Just let's teach me how to sell. This is 100% an industry that forces you to do self-improvement. Like roofing is self-improvement in disguise. It really is. It doesn't make sense, but I'm telling you right now, if you're not continually trying to get better on yourself, you will struggle. So that's what the effort is. It's a little bit different than just the work, right? Apply this and you're good. Those two things and you're solid. And they, again, I know they seem like they're the same thing, but they're really not. Okay? So a little bit about us for those of you that may or may not have looked it up already. Now I'm going to minimize you guys here so we can all see the slides here. So Utah, Colorado, if you guys ever need anything at any point in time, just unmute and holler, okay? Okay. So we have been around since 2010. The owners are Josh and Billy. They worked for another roofing company that had some struggles and what seemed to be very basic things. Just keeping your word to the homeowners, doing what you say you're going to do, and keeping it clean and communicating. Like some very simple things, right? So if you look at that, we now have 6 states, over 1,000 some reviews, and hopefully you guys all looked it up. We average 4.9 in reviews, which in roofing is unheard of, and in home industry stuff in general, it's unheard of. Like look up a plumbing company or an HVAC company or just anything working on your home, 4.9 is not what you see. And that's average across all 6 locations, okay? So we do some very simple things that keep people happy. So cool part is in our industry, it doesn't take much to be successful. Bad part is it doesn't take much to be successful, right? So we are in Oklahoma, Colorado, Utah, Arkansas, Kansas, Texas. Hit them all? Yeah, I think I hit them all. So it seems weird. I always get the order different. I try to go in the order in which they are open, but I always start where I'm standing. So anyhow. Oh, do as I say. There we go. All right. So now a little bit about me. I like going fast, hence why Josh and I constantly go back if I'm ever allowed to have a wrap truck, because I don't know, I'd probably drive our reviews down pretty quick. So, right. If it's in a vehicle, I like going fast. As far as the fitness thing, I just like to move around. I like to do things. I'm getting old and I don't like making weird, strange noises every morning when I get up. So I'm trying to do everything I can, not to slow that process down, basically, right? So up until 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I was the only one that could say this next one, but now there's a guy that went and did it on his first day. I sold a retail cash job my very first day out, which is, again, it's unheard of until someone else did it 3 weeks ago. Dadgummit. I'm probably gonna have to take that off of here. So 9 authorizations in my first 2 weeks. So that's just kind of like it's kind of the beginning, kind of let you know, average, it takes most guys 3 weeks to get one. It's kind of what the average is when someone starts out. So started off like a bang, sold over $1 million while managing. Basically, we have a thing called Comma Club. When you hit Comma Club, you get to make cool hats. You get to customize your own hat. I've made all the coolest hats. Everybody always wants to take my hats, even though I never wear hats because look at me. Next, I have basically, there's all this stuff, right? And hopefully some of you guys are probably in this room going to be too young to understand a lot of my slides, but hopefully you guys at least have seen Talladega, Story of Ricky Bobby. I mean, it's one of the greatest movies ever that's apparently like 19 years old now, so whatever. So here's what you guys are going to get, all right? I'm going to give you a fire hose of information. I promise you, in about the next hour, you're going to be going, what the crap? So it's going to get even more. I want you to barely be able to contain all that you get in these next 3 days. That is my goal. So if you don't feel like you're drowning in information, I failed. I generally do a pretty good job of drowning people, okay? So honestly, if you take these things that I give you seriously, you're legit going to be a top earner, okay? We got 75 slides to go through today. It's going to be a little bit less than 3 minutes a slide. It's tough, but we're going to get there, okay? So first off, we're going to start with exactly what is a roof and the knowledge and the things you need to know about it. Cool thing to know, roofs honestly between today and 100 years ago haven't really changed that much, okay? So the materials themselves, like the super technical things that I'm not smart enough to know, sure, those are different. But in all actuality, like, hasn't changed much, okay? So it's not that hard. Another good thing to know, if my dumb self can think about it, know about it, and understand it, pretty well makes it easy for anybody, okay? So what you need to know about a roof, starting with kind of like the common things that you're going to hear a lot about. And a lot of these things, guys, took me, I wish I knew them sooner. So that's why we do it the way we do it now, okay? So decking, ice and water, flashing, drip edge, underlayment, starter, shingles, pipe jack boots, exhaust vents, and venting, okay? And there's kind of a little bit of a diagram for you. By the way, the majority of what you're going to see on like stuff like this, guess what? It's Google stuff. So understand Googling and YouTubing and get good at it if you're not already, but you probably are. So if you're literally on top of a roof trying to figure something out, punch in the old Google and say, when we get to the inspection checklist here in a little while, like literally when we had that, when those things started, I almost didn't know what anything on it was. I'm like, okay, I got to find this part. And I'd look at pictures. I'm like, all right, where is this on the roof? Like, it ain't too complex. Like, it's really not. You look at a picture, you match it on the roof. Same thing, okay? So decking, we are going to start and we're going to go from what's on the bottom of the roof up. Anything below decking, we don't deal with, okay? Anything decking above, we deal with. So decking, as you can see in all these different pictures, on the far left-hand side, your decking, this is your standard nowadays current model OSB decking, okay? Current OSB decking needs to be 7/16 thickness to be code. That's all states, all locations, okay? If it's OSB decking, but it's thinner than 7/16, it is not code. And kind of an easy way to know, even for someone like Gunner, if you're on top of less than 7/16 decking, like the whole roof is going to feel like it's soft. So if you're walking around, the whole roof feels like it's soft, you didn't have a big dinner, it's probably thin decking. So something to be looking for, okay? Another thing, the reason I say that, you got your rotted decking. Like some guys, man, this whole deck, this whole roof's rot. No, it's just thin decking, okay? Now, if you got, feels kind of soft in one spot, that's probably where you're going to have a rot situation, okay? Let's go over the next time. When you go to the middle or the top two slides here, this is plank decking or board decking, tomato, right? And then space decking. Space decking is no good. That is not code. You cannot install a roof of nowadays materials on space decking, okay? So if it's a cash job, they're going to have to pay a lot of money for it. If it's an insurance job, insurance is going to cover that.
Even if it's a redeck, I mean, they can't just put OSB over that.
You can put OSB over the top of it. Yeah. So good question. When you say redeck, 99.999% of the times, what that means, you're just going to overlay it over the top of whatever is there. okay? Because to tear this off, you're literally going to be ripping away at the framing. Like you're going to do more harm than good. So anytime you redeck, it's just what it's called, you're really just overlaying is all you're doing. Make sense? Okay. So next and lastly is going to be rotten decking. Now, I show you guys these things, and we're going to get into a little bit later here, I think tomorrow actually, but this is not something that's paid for by insurance, okay? This is just wear and tear. Space decking, not code decking, or decking that's too thin, that's paid for by insurance because it's not up to code. This is just a problem. Now, 99.99% of the time, if a roof is more than 6 years old, just in general, you are going to see rotten decking somewhere on that roof. That is why when we do roofs, we're going to supply a homeowner with your average size roof anyway, 2 free sheets of decking, okay? Because there's no way you're not going to have, hopefully you don't have this much, right? There's no way you're not going to have a problem somewhere that needs to be dealt with. Generally speaking, chimney, wall flashings, you're going to have that problem somewhere. We accommodate for it, okay? Does that all make sense so far? Okay. If anybody doesn't follow, just say so. Next is your ice and water, term you're going to hear a lot. Now here's something really cool about the ice and water. In a lot of our locations, except for majority of Oklahoma City and Dallas, like Arkansas and Oklahoma, for example, this is not code. So you're almost never going to see it where you guys are at. However, we install it every single time, point blank, period, in the story. So what's cool about that is if you're at a home that doesn't have it, that's a selling point, right? Because they don't have it now they're going to. And again, your location area, it's like half and half, right? Someone's going to, someone's not, okay? So what ice and water is, what it does, and if you'll kind of notice, these guys are trying to basically not touch it. That stuff is, you're going to look like a fly on a fly trap. That stuff is sticky, okay? It's a thick self-sealing membrane, and it's meant to go down all of your valleys. It's basically meant to go anywhere where 2 pieces meet up. So in all your penetrations, so your valleys, your wall flashings, your chimneys, your pipe jack boots. I'm saying a bunch of things that you probably don't know. Don't worry about it. We're going to get to it in a minute. So the benefit of this is, have you guys ever seen when snow comes up and you just have ice just kind of chilling in the valleys? This is to keep that from becoming a problem. That's the whole purpose of it, okay? Next, flashing, counter flashing, wall flashing, chimney flashing. Flashing is flashing is flashing, okay? And you have different styles of it, okay? If you have it around stone or brick, this is what you're gonna have, okay? It's gonna be on the outside of it. If you look at the top here, or like what he's probably fixing to install here in this photo, if you have siding, it is going to be behind the siding. So all you'll ever see is just a small little sliver. But if it's on a chimney, you're going to see it pretty bright and bold. And it would look the same on stone as well. Purpose of this is to protect water from getting in, okay? Any portion that we go over from here on out, like what is a roof's purpose?
Keep the elements out.
Keep the elements out. One of the elements being water, right? It's like 99.9% of a roof's job, keep water out. So just about everything you see, if you're like, I wonder what that does. When in doubt, it keeps water out. Okay, that's just kind of, that's pretty, see how I rhymed there? See what I did? That's pretty cool. All right, drip edge. So this is another something in Arkansas and some of the areas of Oklahoma City, not even code, and you're almost never going to see it. Like in Tulsa, like we never see this in Tulsa. We are going to install it every single time. Pretty much going to see it everywhere in Dallas, in Utah, Colorado. It's code. You have to have it. Okay. So what your drip edge is, it goes underneath your shingles and over your fascia. Its purpose, if you look at this very middle bottom photo, imagine all this water sitting, like all the rain we're having today, right? Imagine all that just sitting and chilling on your wood fascia and your wood decking. That is exactly how you get this. Okay, this house didn't have drip edge, hence the problem it has. Especially like in your northern areas, like Utah and Colorado, which is why it's code for those guys, because they have ice and ice will straight up get in there. Not code for us because they think all it has to do is keep water out and It's not that big of a deal. So what this does in all places, if you have drip edge, your fascia is literally going to last 3 times longer. Okay, you got a question? Nope, not yet. Okay, all right. Everybody follow so far? Clear as mud? So underlayment. Someone talking? Nope, just me talking. Fantastic. So underlayment, you're going to have 2 different terms for this. They are the same thing, but they mean different materials, okay? So when we say underlayment, we are always going to install a synthetic underlayment, okay? So when someone says underlayment, they're typically referring to the synthetic material versus felt, which is another type of underlayment. That's a paper material. We will never use that. Most roofing companies don't use that anymore. Felt is water absorbing versus underlayment is water wicking, okay? So have you guys ever seen like a tornado or a bad windstorm and you see a bunch of this taped over the top of roofs? That's why. It's waterproof, okay? Versus felt is not. You couldn't go up there and patch a roof temporarily with felt because it's just going to absorb water and soak right through it, okay? So underlayment is going to be lighter. It's going to be a water wicking. It insulates a little better, like it just does all the things a little better. And again, that's the only thing that we use. The majority of roofing companies use pretty much nothing but that. You may have a few chucks in a trucks that don't do it. But if you see this in their house, which if it's 10 years or older, good chance, no matter where you're at, you are seeing paper underlayment, which we'll show you here in a little bit. But if you see paper underlayment, it's an upgrade, okay? So next is your starter strip. So this is going to be the very foundation of your shingles. When it comes to shingles, the only thing that makes shingles work is like links in a chain, okay? So your starter strip has to go along the edge. It gives that very first shingle something it's going to adhere down to, okay? Without the starter strip, your shingles could all be laced in together, but that bottom shingle, the wind would just come up, toss it away. So you got to have the starter strip to start the lockdown of the chain process. Make sense? So that's why it has some parts of a shingle. It almost kind of looks like a naked shingle, okay? All it is just a bare tar strip, and you can just nail it down anywhere you want. Because obviously, like on the very last shingle, I can't nail down this shingle on the very bottom. It has to stick to this sticky part. You're like, oh my gosh, it's just a sticky glue that holds it. Yes. Go for it.
Do our crews, comparing I'm thinking of the company I worked for, we'd always be like, oh, we'd go above and beyond. We put 5 nails in each shingle versus the
6.
Oh, is it 6? Okay.
Yeah, 5 standard, we use 6.
Okay.
So.
Good call.
Oh, is it lock? That's good to know. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, so if you do get asked that, what he's talking about is how many nails you have to put in each shingle. So if you've ever seen the roofers, if you've ever heard it getting done, yeah, so take 6 per shingle is what we require. Now, the shingle that we use, the manufacturer only says it has to have 5. I don't care. We do 6 because that's what it always has been, and that's what you stick them to. That's what their fingers are. That's what their body mechanics say. It says 6. I ain't breaking it. So next, shingles themselves. I'm going to get into a little bit more later as far as the product we carry and what product we use. This is just for sake of shingles themselves, okay? Shingles are made of the main most important part of a shingle, the term you're going to hear a lot is the granules, okay? The granules are the very top of the shingle. It's like the paint job on a car, okay? So it gives you your color, but it's also what protects it. So when you see a roof that is starting to lose a lot of granules, that roof is no longer protected. Most people think, oh, that's just a pretty thing. No, like what's the purpose of a paint job, right? If your car didn't have paint, a year later, it's rusted away, okay? If your shingles don't have granules on them anymore, like literally it's no longer a strong unit, okay? Underneath that, you have asphalt, fiberglass, then asphalt. It's all it is. So it's basically a little strip. And as you can see, you have the exposed part of the shingle that shows, and the next part goes right over the top of it. So they made to stack on top of stacking, on top of stacking. So, and the one that we are going to use primarily, 90% what you do, our entry-level shingles, the GAF Timberline HDZ. So if you do some looking up on that, you're going to want to know some things about it. Okay. And we are a GAF Master Elite installer. Cool part about that, only 1% of roofing companies can even qualify to be GAF Master Elite. Okay. So are we the only ones out there? No. But most aren't. Okay. And kind of like when I very first started with, we've been around since 2010. What do you think the average life expectancy of a roofing company is?
The roofing company or the shingle?
For the nation. Roofing company. How long is a roofing company standing around, generally speaking? What's that? 3 years is exactly right. You want to hear something super terrifying? In Oklahoma, it's 9 months. Okay. So basically, if you make it past 5 years, you're kind of doing what you want to do, right? As far as like, you're going to make it. So we've definitely hit that point. So we're going to get a little bit about what the GAF HDZ shingle is itself. Okay. So GAF is literally the world's largest shingle manufacturer. The common known shingle that everybody refers to now, it's one type of shingle, but lots of different names like pop or soda, right? Is the laminate shingle, aka asphalt shingle, aka dimensional shingle, aka architectural shingle. They all mean the same thing. Okay. They are the company that created that style of shingle. Okay. So it'd be like, this is the guy that made a car. They created that style of shingle. So what you're looking at here and all the nail strip, you're going to hear a lot about the nail strip. The nail strip is a very, very important part of the shingle as far as how it's going to hold up, how long it's going to last. When he's talking about how many nails do you have to put in? 6. Okay. Again, this manufacturer says you only got to put in 5. We put in 6. So their nail strip has some special things about it. The special thing about it is on most nail strips, they're basically just two. So you kind of got the sticky stuff, right? They're just 2 bonded pieces together. Well, they do that. Plus they do this little weird injected like press cone thing. It's more than just bonded. Okay. Just cool process that again, not smart enough to know. It's cool. It's awesome. Holds up better. So basically with this shingle, if you use all of their system, you can actually upgrade and get a unlimited wind rating. Okay. Pretty much unheard of. The reason they have that is because of the technology of the shingle. If you don't decide to get the upgrade, because again, customers have to pay for that, it's 135 mile an hour shingle, which is kind of standard of what most shingles do, most architecturals. Make sense? Follow me? Okay. Oh, and just so you guys know, this is how you lace in a shingle. So if you ever hear lacing, this is what we're referring to. Shingles always kind of get put in that manner because once again, it's linking a chain. And a valley, you really want to know how a valley of a roof gets done. Okay. What it is, you have to take one side 12 inches into the other side, and then this side overlaps and you cut the top side. Okay. So they don't just take them and cut them both. It's overlapping because nothing on a roof is waterproof. Little key note, nothing on a roof is waterproof. You just hope to put so many layers on it, right? It's like when you put on a coat, you're not waterproof. It's just an extra layer. Same thing. All right. Pipe jack boots, exhaust vents, pipe, all the vents. Okay. Pipe jack boots, you're going to hear a lot of. Does anybody know what a pipe jack boot is? Hint, is anybody any good at plumbing? I'm definitely not. So what your pipe jack boot is, it's going to be your PVC pipe. Okay. If you got a PVC pipe coming out, that is a vent to your plumbing system. So even if all you had is a sink needs a vent because even a sink will literally, without a vent, it's bad, super bad smelling. Okay. So if you see these pipe jack vents, there's not necessarily like you could, typically speaking, you're going to have a vent for every water location. Like if you have a bathroom, you have a pipe jack vent for it. If you have a kitchen, you have, typically speaking. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have one for all of them put together. It doesn't mean you're going to have one per. I've seen it in all sorts of ways. Depends on the geniuses that built the house, right? So just know that this right here is pipe jack, and there's going to be some sort of plumbing underneath it. Okay. Next is your exhaust vents. There's all sorts of different types of exhaust vents. Don't do the dumb thing and go, oh, is that your such and such exhaust vent? Because you don't know, and then you look like me and you thought a water heater vent was the HVAC vent, because they freaking look the same. Okay. Don't pretend you know. Just know, hey, that exhaust hot air. That's all you need to know. Okay. And again, there's all sorts of different ones depending on how old it is. Like this one here, I mean, that thing's been around for a minute. That's more new age, new style, right? But the difference is your pipe jack boots are going to have a rubber boot versus this is all metal, because obviously the rubber would just melt. They don't get that hot. I mean, if you touch them, you're not going to get burned. It's not like an exhaust on a car. But again, to put rubber on it permanently would not be a good idea either. Follow? Okay. Venting. So this is super, 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 super important. The roofing industry did not realize until just, I don't know, like 6 years ago, how much we don't vent houses properly. Now, why is venting important to roofers? Anybody take a guess?
Let's see. Well, it extends the life of the roof. I mean, the hotter it gets.
Moisture.
Okay. What did you say?
So it prevents the shingles heating up, and so they don't get blistered.
Fantastic. Yep. So as a roofer, if your roof is ventilated properly, the shingles don't have to take as much heat. And heat and cold, just like all things, is wear and tear. Now, that is why you should care about it. But do you think a homeowner really cares about it? Absolutely not. Let me tell you why you really should care about it. It's going to help keep your AC bill down. It's going to help the house cool better. Because if the roof is vented properly, the attic is vented properly, and the attic is cooler. If the attic is cooler, so is your house. Okay? So, on average, if you take what your average size roof is, your average roof should have 6 vents on it. You're going to see your average roof has 2. So venting is almost never, ever, ever good enough. And you'll learn over time what's enough, what's not. In the meantime, on our system, which you guys will learn later, you can actually punch all the boopity-doops into the computer, and it'll tell you how much venting you should have. Okay? Now, there's all sorts of venting. I'm going to go over the 3 main ones, and then in my opinion, which one is best. And by the way, when I say my opinion, that basically means right. Okay. You can choose to go against it. That's fine. You all have the right to be wrong. So this one is going to be another one of those things. There's different styles of it, but they basically all mean the same thing. They all have the same terms. This one right here specifically is a slant back vent. But most guys are going to look at this and call it a turtle vent or a box vent. Okay. And there's different versions. They look somewhat similar. But if you see at the top of the roof something that looks like a box, guess what? It's a box vent, turtle vent, something. Okay. Next is your ridge vent. Your ridge vent is going to run across the entire ridge of the roof. Okay. And it's going to look like it's going to look like the top of the ridge, just thicker than most ridges that you see. So it's pretty easy to see. This one right here, you'll see a lot of them. We'll never install them. It's going to be the whirlybirds, spinner vents, turbine vents, whatever. If something sounds like it spins and they're describing a vent, that's what they're referring to. Okay. I don't know what each area calls them, but those are the things I've heard them called. Okay. These things right here, if you don't see them moving, they are not working. Period. If it's not spinning, it's not working. And you may think, but it's still got slants and slots in it. Don't know what to say. Doesn't work. It's not spinning. It's not working. It's not venting. Point blank, period, end of story. Now, these things actually, and a lot of people don't know this, how many of you guys probably had them on your homes, you actually have to maintain these. You're supposed to get up and grease them once a year. So you guys, most of you probably don't know, but in the old days, you used to have to grease the front ends of your trucks and whatnot. Same thing here, but no one does it. Now, the best style of venting is going to be the ridge vent. Okay. Some may come in and say, Power venting is better. I'm going to give you two things about power venting. I personally have never seen one last longer than 5 years. So you're going to pay $1,000 some per vent, and you're going to need about 2 of them, and it ain't going to make it 5 years. Versus this is $40, okay, and it never breaks. On top of that, a power vent actually creates negative pressure to your HVAC system, which is not good. So if you hear someone say, I have a power vent or I want a power vent, I mean, they want it, okay, just inform them that they're stupid and they make bad decisions like anybody who has OSU for a fan, okay, or a team, okay. Next, the ridge vent. The reason that is the best, if applicable. Now understand on all roofs, a ridge vent is not applicable. If you don't have a long enough ridge, which is a horizontal plane, it doesn't count, okay? So if you have one of those roofs, like we have a lot of them here in this area, like they come up to one point, you're just gonna have to jam as many turtle vents in as you can. And sometimes literally with the designs of some of these houses, like you can't put enough venting in it and it just sucks. So try to get as much as you can. But if a ridge vent is applicable, it's the best form of venting because it's not just going through a little box, it's going through the entire system, okay? So if you're like, what kind of venting do you have on your house, Marcus? Thanks for the question. I have ridge vent because once again, I'm right. So now the next thing that you're going to need in all of them, okay? If you have proper venting up top, you must have proper soffit venting. So have you guys ever seen the things on your, so by the way, this is your soffit here, okay? You ever seen those look like little AC vents but hanging upside down on the outside of your house? You guys ever seen those? Those are soffit vents. If you don't have enough of those, air can't enter in to escape out. Or if you don't have any of those, you can't escape air. You need a flow, okay? Another thing that you may see is a gable vent. That's just when you have them on the sides on the top. Gable venting is kind of the way we used to do it before soffit venting. So if it's an older house, you may have gable venting. Is it the best? No, but in some cases it's all you got. Talk at me.
In the newer houses, do they have just like PVC just coming out the side of the house? Because I know like in my mom's neighborhood, we don't have, there's no vent like that. It's literally
like this?
just, yeah.
Okay.
It's literally just, it looks like an exhaust pipe and it's just 2 PVCs that come out like the side of the house at the top. And I'm not sure if that's the same thing of what you're talking about.
I don't believe so. You like it comes out the top up here?
More
or like down here?
More where the
come point it up.
The gable vent.
Oh, more like the gable vent?
Yeah.
Okay, and it's a PVC pipe?
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you what that is. I can't say that I've seen that. Your soffit venting now, so what a lot of them have, like on a newer home, especially like in a nicer neighborhood, either if you have like nicer hardy board or say you have cheaper vinyl, it'll have just a bunch of little holes in it. That's fine. So you need something that takes air into the bottom. Send me some pictures next time you think about it, and I'd like to be able to tell you nothing's ringing a bell right off the top of the mind. But I would be interested to know what that is. Any other questions as far as venting goes? So do understand, and I'm gonna teach you all I say tricks for lack of a better term because I don't like using tricks per se, but the more you understand these things and the more you understand what we do and what we use, you can help give someone benefits, okay? So the majority of the roofs you get on are not going to be vented properly. You can immediately start talking about venting day one. It's probably going to describe some issues that you're seeing with their roof, and it also gives you something to take care of and fix for them going down the road in the future. So the reason when I got the quick story on how I got sold on venting myself personally, and I'd sold a bunch of them, I'm like, all right, I get it in theory, but I didn't like get it. We installed this on a homeowner's house, had a 2-story house, and we did the install like in June or July. It's hot in the summer. And we went talking about it, and I could tell there's a part of the roof that didn't have any venting on it whatsoever. Okay. Well, it was over the kids' room. And we didn't necessarily ever have this talk with the kids, but about 2 days after the build, homeowner calls me. Hey, I just want to let you know, my kids who are like 10 and 8, which kids could care less about energy bills and like they don't care about any of those things. They're like, hey, Dad, I don't know what the deal is, but ever since they did the roof, my room's cooler. Like, I didn't sell his kids. I didn't be like, hey, little Timmy, guess what? If you get your daddy to spend more money, you're like, they never even knew about it. And yet they felt enough of a difference to go tell their mom and dad. So that to me was like, okay, like the thing I kind of sort of understood in theory is like legit.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Is that a typical thing? Like, because I know several houses with that problem, with one room being cooler or hotter than the other.
Yep. Where's the picture up? Okay. So if you see on this house here, like I have on the very bottom, see how it's got ridge venting? The majority, when you see all the other vents, are always going to be in the back side of the house because they're ugly, right? And they try to, and most builders are going to try not to put any pipe jack boots. Like most builders are going to try not to put anything on the front of the house other than shingles, which means this is just a porch, no big deal. But that means this whole room right here, which is typically like a living room or a dining room or something like that, is not going to have any form of ventilation. So the attic temperatures here are going to be significantly harder than the part of the house that has venting. But when you do a ridge vent, because it's part of the ridge, it looks pretty everywhere. This portion of the house can now be vented. So again, I'm not saying you can't put a box vent or a turtle vent or any of the other kind of vents on here, but no one's going to do that because it doesn't look good. Yeah, versus this looks good and it functions. So bridge vent, and same thing here, as you can see, like on this little room. So, and you're going to see a lot of that type of stuff out in Dallas with the style of houses you have out there, right? So, and you may go in some places that like a whole neighborhood has ridge vent because the builder's like, I don't know how people think my house is inefficient, right? So you'll probably, as the roofing industry is starting to understand how much importance it holds, you'll start to see it get improved. And like a lot of your new home builders, they're starting to just put these in all over the place, right? And it's actually changing the design of some. So these houses that come to a point with these crazy, stupid, steep roofs, like they are massively inefficient. And those roofs never make it more, like in the South anyway, those roofs never make it more than like 15 years. So you got a 35-year roof, it's not making it more than 15 years. It's just not. On those big, steep, pointy roofs, it just ain't going to happen. Okay. So
the life expectancy on roofs that like come more to a point or are taller, like you said.
Yeah. So a roof that can't be vented properly is going to age the roof faster. So the reason venting is so important for a roof is, like I told you, those granules mean everything, right? So if a roof is getting too hot, those granules are literally just falling off. Okay. So if you ever come to a house and you see a lot of, looks like sand pouring out of the downspouts of the gutters, that's the roof. It's your roof literally just washing away. So as those granules fade away, you're literally losing protection on your home. So those roofs that are super steep and by nature don't vent well, I don't care what shingle you put on there, you're going to hurt the life of it. So if if all roofs are these simple gable roofs, like, bro, they last forever. And that's why you'll get on these simple design houses and you're like, this roof's 30 years old, the shingles look brand new. It's pretty easy to vent those roofs. But it's funny, the nicer and more fancy the house is, the roof lasts fewer and fewer. So anyhow, all the more reason to have a good shingle, which is a lot of the things that this here cures. Okay. But venting is super important. So once again, I know we kind of sort of briefly touched on all these things. These are things you absolutely need to know and have memorized into your brain. The ridge. These are your common roofing terms. So if you're ever meeting an adjuster and they start saying these things, you're going to want to know what it means. Okay. So the ridge is going to be the top point of the roof. So like this is your main, on this particular drawing, this would be your main ridge. This would be another ridge. That'd be the ridge over your porch. Okay. So ridges are important to know. Valleys. You can hear the term valley a lot. A valley is where you got two slopes that come together. Okay. Question? Okay. So while we're on the valleys and what you're seeing here, a couple things about valleys. One, if you got a steep roof, that's your best place to be. If you're walking on a valley, if you want me to explain it to you, I can't. Like I said, there's many things that I just know to be true and I don't question it, right? Like Brad Pitt's prettier than me. It just is what it is. I just accept it and move on. No need to argue about it. But if you walk up a valley, just the easiest place to be. Like if I'm trying to enter on this house right here, I'm not putting my ladder here. I'm putting my ladder in this corner One, so that the ladder falls, it can only fall one way, right? It's not going to fall this way. But then it means I can enter and exit through this valley. Just easiest place to be. If you're on a super steep roof, you're walking in valleys somehow, it's just magically easier. Okay. So on the valleys, there's different types of ice and water or different ways to build them. Like in this picture here, this is going to be a metal valley, which in my opinion is the best looking. Like I love metal valleys. I think they look beautiful. However, from a functional standpoint, they suck. Okay. Because if you remember when we talked about this right here, you need to overlap your valleys, right? If you do a metal, wrong way. If you do a metal valley, you can't do that. You're cutting both shingles here. So rather than having 12 inches of overlap, you only have the 1 inch of overlap that you're getting over that metal valley. On top of that, that metal over the years is not going to heat, shrink, and expand and contract like the shingle will. So just again, by its inherent nature, the very thing it's supposed to do doesn't do it as well. It's kind of like, for example, a Ferrari. It's a very fun, wonderful car. I would not have wanted to take it on my road trip that I just took this weekend to St. Louis. My truck was much more comfortable. Okay, so plus and minus. Gunnar, what you got?
So metal valleys, whenever you're looking at older roofs, are like a good starting point whenever you're looking for, because you said it'll provide the least protection. If I'm going to look at that roof, am I wanting to start there because it's the most exposed, or?
No, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So that's a good question. We're going to get into that very quickly. But there's two different types of metal valleys. Okay, so you have the one that you're going to see on the outside, and then back in the day, like 20 plus years ago, rather than ice and water being, where's that? Rather than it being this, it used to be like this piece of aluminum. It looked like someone opened up a long pop can and rolled it down. So if you're ever walking up a valley and it sounds like you're crushing a pop can, that's what. And that also sucks really bad. So though this here is a common, that's common and new. And especially in your area and in Oklahoma City both, I know there's certain areas like this is required by HOA. So if that's required by HOA, which it's going to be, we're still going to install the other ice and water underneath it. Okay. I think it's beautiful. I just don't like it as much. So certain homeowners are going to have that. I say this because if you sell this job, you need to let the production team know, hey, we have to install metal. Otherwise, we're not going to do it. Like if you don't tell us to install a metal valley, we are not going to do it. Because again, from a functionality standpoint, they're just not as good. Okay. So like functionally, I can probably move around a lot quicker and a lot more flexibility than the rock can. But obviously he's stronger than me. So, right? I mean, probably, maybe not. You think I think we've been about the same. All right. So next thing we want to talk about is your rake and your eave. Okay. Basically the easy way, a good term for me, or at least the way I memorized it, again, real stupid guy. Okay. You can't put gutters on a rake. Gutters go on eaves. So these are your eaves, like where the gutters would go. This here is a rake. Does that make sense? So if you've ever seen gutters on a rake, somebody's even dumber than me. So gutters go on eaves, rakes can't have gutters. Kind of how it's what I used to, or rakes are pointy, whatever you want to think about. That's a rake. These are eaves. Okay. And you're almost always going to have more eave footage than rake on a house. Next is your soffit. And again, so here's a diagram of it, but in all actuality, this is a better diagram of what your soffit is. So soffit vent, guess what? Goes on a soffit, right? Again, us roofers are real smart. Okay. Fascia. What is fascia? Fascia is what the gutter is attached to, right? So the fascia, it comes in all sorts of different sizes, but it's the edge of the house here. So this little white piece that you're seeing, that is your fascia board, okay? Fascia board is what your drip edge is going to attach to. So there's your fascia, there's your drip edge. Make sense? Next, your pitch. And you're going to hear a lot of this term. Your pitch is indicating how steep the roof is. Okay. I put 10, 12 here. Now, this is a matter of an opinion, right? In my opinion, 10, 12 is what you start considering a steep roof. Because here, everything is way steeper than it needs to be. You go to Colorado or Utah, they barely ever even see a 10. Like 10, 12 is entry level. We got 12, 12s all over the place. So what that means is for every 12 inches the roof goes horizontal, it's that many inches upward. Okay. So an 8 obviously is a lower pitch than a 10. So in my opinion, you get your pitch gauge that says 10, walk a little bit more careful. Okay. Anything less than that, I don't really care. Now, Chris, one of our guys here in Tulsa, you ask him, anything over a 5 is pretty steep, which is almost non-existent here in Tulsa. Like everything's over 5. Like 8's our minimum, pretty much. So it just depends on what you consider steep. Now, from an insurance company perspective, like there's going to be insurance companies when you call in claims, like, hey, is this a steep roof? The majority of your insurance companies don't let their adjusters anything on bigger than a 712. They have to call out what's called a ladder company. So if they ask you, if you're on a phone call when you're making a claim and say, is it a steep roof? If it's over a 712, say yes. It's good. This is definitely one of those things where Marcus' opinion is, I mean, look, I'm just a little bit more athletic than most, okay? I get around pretty good like. That's also a lie. And then OSB, also decking, OSB decking, that's what they're referring to, okay? Chimney flue cap. You're going to see this on a lot of your paperwork and understand that even though we can do them, we're virtually never going to touch them, okay? So a chimney flue cap is, guess what? It's the cap at the top of your chimney. Again, we think real good like in roofing, right? So you may see it. So the majority of the reason why a roof is going to be bought by the insurance company is because of hail. Well, if hail hit and dented up all these other things, there's also going to be dents on this thing. Well, unless your homeowner is 37 feet tall, they're not seeing the top of this. They don't care if there's some dings on top of it because it's one of those deals, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You could be tearing open a chimney and creating a problem. So it's like, if the only problem is a ding, unless they want you to replace it, don't freaking replace it. Leave it alone. So that's why you'll see anytime we do, we almost always just give that credit for that payment to the homeowner. We don't ever do it. Never say never, but majority of the time we don't do it. Okay. Last thing, hip. Okay. Like Shakira, the hips don't lie. It's not your ridge, it's your hip. And there's a big difference. Now, they both take the same shingles. So you install ridge shingles on a hip, but they are two different things. So your hip and your ridge. Okay. So those are all your common terms. There's a lot more terms, but those are kind of your common ones, just referring to the overall like structure of what makes what, right? Make sense? Okay. So how in the world do I apply this? And someone's trying to jump in a little late. He's exactly an hour late because he didn't understand the time difference. So we are going to talk about how to apply this here in a minute because I know the majority of you guys made a long drive, except for you guys are just sitting at your house, so you did not make a long drive. But nonetheless, let's take 5, and we're going to come back and we're going to start talking about how to apply all this crap. And if you guys want to know where the restrooms are, go back out the entrance. I went the wrong way. I'll tell you that. I shocker. I don't like having to ask questions or like need help. I had to ask, and I'm like, dang it, I can't find a bathroom. I'm not an adult. But go back out and hang a left. If you go this way, that's wrong. Cool? All right, so take 5. Utah, Colorado, you guys got any questions? Nope, all good? All right, so now the Brian with a Y from Utah is entering in. Oh, no, you're good. Let me pull this up here. Okay, Brian, who's just tuning in, you actually got it was actually 10 o'clock your time, so you're an hour back, so we'll have to do some catching up on you later, but good afternoon to you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Good afternoon to you too.
Yeah, we got I'm gonna tell you right now, if we don't fix this Brian problem we got out there in Utah, there's too many of you, and I ain't smart enough to keep up with it.
The manager's name is Brian. You got two Brian.
And I got two Brian. Yep, that is exactly correct, sir. So also, Brian, we're taking a quick 5 to catch up on a break. So you'll start hearing me talk here in a minute.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
So it's going to have double the wind rating pretty much. And that's, again, average. Some have less, some have more, right? But that's why anytime you have 3 tab, it's almost always going to be the wind damage problem. You'll have wind damage on your architecturals, but not usually, okay? Like if you got wind damage on an architectural, probably just because it's an old wore out shingle to start with. But you'll have wind damage on these things like day one if a storm comes through. Cool? So what is hail? What does it actually look like? What does it actually do? Okay. So this is a computerized drawing, AKA means it's truthful, right? So like I said before, you have your asphalt, then you have fiberglass, then you have asphalt, then you have your granules, okay? And your granules, once again, are what give it color and protect it, okay? When this hailstone comes down, it's doing a handful of things. It's probably going to knock loose a good majority of those granules in that little circular area. But then also it's going to bruise the shingle. It's going to impact it, put this crack in it, okay? This is why insurance companies replace it, because hail can cause a leak. Majority speaking, if hail hits your house today, unless it's a big chunk and it goes straight through the roof, it's probably going to be about 3 or 4 years before that actually becomes a problem. Hence why insurance companies only give you a year to file the claim from the storm date. Because they know if they jump on it within a year, they're going to save themselves from buying a bunch of interior damage as well.
Question.
Answer.
How are they going to be able to tell whether it's been a year or not?
So they're taking educated guesses from weather reports. So, and we're going to get into that a little bit deeper later. But basically what it means is they're going to say, hey, hail hit this area at this time. So if they pull up a report and no hail's hit that area within the last year, they're going to know. Or let's say the impact spot that they're looking at is a 2-inch spot, but the most recent hail was only 1 inch. They know it came from something previous.
Wow.
Yep. So it's educated guessing. And we'll get in how to over-educate them here in the next handful. Anybody else got any questions so far? So, cool thing, like something that Josh likes to point out all the time, the ways to find hail, it's going to be like a little circular black spot. Unless it's on a black roof, it's going to be a circular non-granule black spot. So it's pretty easy to see. And when you push in on it, it's going to be real soft to the touch. So if you push on a regular shingle, like it's freaking granite, it's rock hard. It's incredibly impressive how it's just super hard. But if you go to that spot, it's going to be really soft. In which case, if you have fragile little fingers like mine, you need to wear gloves when you're on a roof. We got some guys that just walk around, bare, no gloves, and I don't know how their fingers don't bleed, and then go home and cry to their wives, because I definitely did the first day, and I wear gloves from there on out. But anyways, you're going to touch on a hot roof. If it's soft, if it has a little circle that's missing and it's soft, it's probably hail. And it's soft because it's broken. It's no longer a sealed unit. Okay? This is what it actually looks like in the real life. Okay? Now this here is about 2-inch hail. And this was some pretty dense hail, meaning the hail was super hard. Okay? That is what it's going to look like. I used a gray roof because this is the kind of roof it's going to show up the easiest on. Like, if you get on a roof that's this color and you can't find any hail, there's no hail. Like, just telling you right now, there's no hail. This roof, if you have this color roof and it took a hail hit, like, it's pretty doggone visible. These you can see from the streets. Majority of the time, you're not going to see hail from the streets. Okay, this scenario you're going to. So this is what you're looking for. Now, you guys notice that I'm showing non-shingles. There's a reason for that. This is what you call collateral. Meaning, hail on a roof is subjective. It's not, but the insurance companies have better lawyers than most. Okay? You can't really say that this is hail, not aging, if you don't have collateral to go along with it. Okay? Meaning, I want it, if it's a duck, I want it to look like a duck, walk like a duck, talk like a duck, squawk like a duck. If I got hail-looking dings on the metal, because we all know what hail looks like on a car, right? And by the way, if I'm walking around doing an inspection and I see hail on the car in the driveway, I'm taking pictures of that too. Like if hail hit all of these things, then the thing that looks like hail on the roof is hail. Okay. So there's your downspout with some hail on it. There is your turtle vent with some hail on it. And this is the big one. If you have hail on your ridge shingles, not even your two insurance companies that are difficult to deal with are going to deny you. Okay. If you find hail on a ridge, you're pretty solid because this shingle is significantly more hardy than a regular shingle. So if it can damage a ridge, it absolutely damages a shingle. Cool? Oh yeah. So I already have to do what happened to my slides. Anyways, wind damage. Now, most roofers are never even going to try to do wind damage claims. Why do you think that is?
Because it doesn't pay out for the whole thing. They'll just replace that section.
Very good. Why is that?
Because it's cheaper. Well, it's cheaper just to fix the wind damaged part than replace the whole roof.
Okay. What if I told you on average, just here in the Tulsa area, we take 4 roofs a week from repairs to full replacements? Most roofers don't do it because of all the things you guys are going to learn today. Wind damage is absolutely amazing, as long as you know what you're doing and how to look at it. Now, if you look here, this all looks like wind damage. There's actual different types and different things about it. Okay. When I see this type of wind damage, it immediately tells me something that this one doesn't. Does anybody want to guess what that is? You can't guess. You've already guessed. Okay. So what do you think it is about this shingle that tells me something different than this one?
Actually, don't know.
Yep, they're both 3 tabs. I ain't taught you yet, so I'm just curious if anybody did any pre-search. That's the thing you do. That's the research you do before you need to do research is pre-search. I got all sorts of cool things, okay? I'm cool with kids. I don't know what to tell you. When I see this, this tells me this shingle is brittle. When you want to know how to fight insurance companies, brittle's your #1 way to fight them. This shingle here is not brittle because the wind was able to come up enough and that shingle stayed intact and pulled all of its brothers and sisters along with it. This one here is so weak, when the wind just got underneath that one tab, it just tore away. Like, I'm not strong enough to drag my brothers and sisters down with me. Or maybe it's a selfless shingle and it took itself only and let its brothers and sisters survive. Depending on how you want to do it, depending on if you think of shingles as family, I like to consider my shingles family. This one here, that's just straight up, product of a tornado area. This here, this is an architectural shingle wind damage. So is this one here. It's kind of hard to see in this picture. It's got grainy and when it gets blown up on the computer. But your wind damage on architectural shingle generally is going to look like it just got pulled a little bit. Okay. Now this right here is what you're seeing a lace get torn down. Now, this is actually a combination of 3 things. Wind is one of them. Another thing, this is more than likely a fairly steep roof. So this shingle is probably also delaminating a little bit. And it probably wasn't installed super good. Now, in some cases, it's just one or the other. In almost all the cases you're going to come across, it's a combination of. Now, your adjusters are going to say, oh, that's just bad installation. Then why are the other badly installed shingles okay? And why did this shingle hang on for the last 10 years of this roof? Like, it's almost always a combination, right? So, show you some of what I'm talking about. When they say insulation, that means what they're trying to say is the installer did not run the nails in the nail zone properly, which is probably accurate, okay? But also, when a shingle is on a super steep roof, like if a shingle's laying on a pretty flat roof, it just has to hold it down. But if it's pretty steep, it has to hold it down and hold it up, right? So what happens over time as that shingle expands, contracts, heats, that nail hole just starts to waller out a little bit. And then when the wind comes, it's easier to come up. So once again, typically speaking, it's a combination problem. So is this just wind? Probably not. Is it just installation? Probably not. Again, unless you're seeing this and the roof's only a year old, that's an installation problem. But if the roof's like 10, 15 years old, whatever, and you got this, hey, I'm not saying you're wrong, Mr. Adjuster, but you know what? Wind was definitely involved in this. Okay? Versus he's not going to tell you this is bad installation. Well, it's pretty obvious. So generally speaking, this is a photo where there's an architectural shingle that's straight up ripped up. That was some pretty gnarly winds. This was actually during our Father's Day storm a year ago, 2 years ago, but 110 mile an hour straight winds, like in the middle of town, like tornado speed winds, hurricane winds, though there was neither one of those things. It was the weirdest thing ever. Okay. Very rarely are you going to see that. So next one, and this is the thing that most guys say, but don't actually have a flipping clue what they're saying. Granular loss. As we talked about before, just like when I see this, like that to me means, ooh, brittle shingle, let's go knock on that door. Like that, I see this and this tells me something. This tells me that one shingle, I can get that roof replaced for that homeowner. This right here tells me they have the potential of a lot of problems. Okay? So this tells me this roof is walking around on crutches. Does that mean that roof can't make it up the stairs? No. But pretty good chance. Because the roof with or without crutches, I'd rather take the one without. Okay? This roof's on crutches all day long. Or maybe one of them little knee scooter things. Definitely on something. Okay? It's not getting around real good. So when you see like little speckly shiny things looking like fiberglass, that's exactly what you're seeing. You're seeing fiberglass. The granule loss is so much that it's lost to granules, and then the sun has baked out the top layer of asphalt. Now you're seeing the fiberglass. Okay? So when you see pieces of fiberglass, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing essentially 2 layers of the shingle gone. It's only 4 layers in the shingle, like literally half gone. That is the protection of it. Granules are made to shed water. How much water shedding do you think this roof's doing? Like it's absorbing it, right? So this thing ain't got a jacket on. It's out there in a wife beater in a monsoon. Okay? So when you see granular loss, does that mean it in and of itself is a leaking problem? No. But what that does mean, you think that valley's in good shape? You are dead wrong. You think a granular loss shingle is good around the edges? You are dead wrong. That shingle is in bad shape. Now, could this mean that hail damage could have existed on this shingle? I mean, for sure. But it's going to be real hard to distinguish what's hail and what's granular loss. Okay? Because if you look, oh, went the wrong way. God, learn the clicker. Like, it's basically just a whole lot of that. So if you can find hail on a granular loss roof, great, but it's difficult. But this here tells me the same thing this does. This roof is brittle and it needs to be replaced. So when we talk about, most roofers just get up on a roof and think, how can I get the insurance to pay for this? Because that's the only way I'm going to get a check. When I get on a roof, I'm thinking, does it have a problem? Period. And is it a fixable problem, i.e. repairable, or is this going to take a full roof? Like, the facts are the facts are the facts. If I go into the doctor, I'm like, hey man, my back's hurting really bad. I was trying to do my max 700 deadlift, which if you think I lift 700 pounds, I appreciate you. And all of a sudden my back hurts real bad. Well, you know what? You got a good copay, so we're going to go ahead and cut you up and give you a surgery. Oh, hold up. Now what? Now you're going to want him to tell you a little something, right? But that's how all roofers sell. We're like, hey, tell you what, you got real good insurance. We're going to get this kind of thing covered. What do you think? Versus, here's your problem. Here's what we need to do. Good news is insurance can help us. So by understanding a roof and knowing what a roof is made of and what it needs, you can first establish the problem. Because facts are facts, math are math. If the roof needs to be replaced, it needs to be replaced, regardless of who's paying for it. Like what's needed is needed. My truck needs to get its oil changed. Who does it? Whole nother story. That ain't gonna be me, tell you that. Too old, like I told you. I make noises. Okay? So, brittle. I've kind of touched on it a little bit, but as you can see, what kind of damage is this right here in the top left corner? Wind damage. Now, would you see that kind of wind damage if the shingle wasn't brittle? No, you would not. But
Because it's on a ridge, and that's where it would be.
So if a shingle is not brittle, wind damage, it's taking the whole shingle, okay? Because it's got enough strength to hold on. If it's brittle, it's just going to tear itself apart. Because that basically tells you when wind enters, it does enter just off of like one little spot, right? You know what I mean? So it's like all of a sudden you just get this wind gust that knocks your hat off. It's just like it just came up just that one time just right. Same deal. That's all it's grabbing is basically just a little part of it, and that shingle gave way and the rest of them held down. Okay? This here is also wind damage, but it's on a brittle shingle. It's brittle because it creased. So it had basically what it means is that happened to it, but then it folded itself back down. And those ones that you see that are completely missing, they've probably done this a couple times. Like you ever tried to break a credit card? Like, you've been going back and forth for like 30 minutes and it finally breaks, right? Well, okay, I'm not doing that to my metal card. I mean, come on, seriously. That's like a weapon though too, by the way. My wife doesn't let me have them. This here is a form of brittle. So this is one where we were pulling a shingle out to send it off to have inspected to see if it's still a current shingle. And you notice it tore on the glue. So that means these pieces of glue right here, this shingle is so brittle, the shingle's tearing before the glue tears. So what brittle means is that the shingle is not stronger than any fastener. Or like right here, when it has a massive hole because the nail was stronger than the shingle. The shingle should be able to pull the nail up with it. Now, does that mean when you got to remove it, you're trying to be, no, you do have to try to be careful. But brittle means, am I going to be able to pull those other shingles up and around it without doing the same thing to those? Absolutely not. So that means this is unrepairable. So that means this wind damage can't be repaired because a roof is a laced system. To remove this shingle, to remove a shingle, you have to remove the 3 shingles above it. Now, you think you're removing 3 shingles on any of these roofs and not tearing them up? Nope. So here's an architectural roof that has some wind damage. And what you're seeing is basically another version of this, right? It's got these little tabs that have blown off. Now, is that necessary? I mean, that's not as big of a problem as this. It's got exposed nails, right? Just because it's an architectural shingle, it's meant to be better. But this right here, that tells you the same thing. If you see tears, missing tabs or missing teeth, whatever you want to call them on, that tells you the shingle's brittle. Point blank period in the story. And if a shingle's brittle, it is not repairable. Make sense? So it'd be like if I take my car and I have a hole in the side of my block. Well, an oil change ain't gonna do you much good, bud. Same thing. Hopefully you guys get car analogies because it's all I know, all right? I know cars and then some roofing things. More about cars, sadly. All right. Discontinued shingles. It's a disco. Listen, bro, you're not doing any discoing back in your day? Sure, you probably had some disco frat parties, right? Well, I mean, I wasn't old enough to have them either, but like had some disco theme parties. Leave me alone. All right. So discontinued. Why does discontinued matter? Well, once again, if I have to repair this shingle, it means the one I replace it with needs to be compatible. Okay? There's different forms of discontinued. So first, let's talk 3-tab. Once again, we don't use it, but you need to know about it. 3-tab shingles, this is what you call a shingle gauge. Okay? And basically, you just put that thing in there. If the shingle only goes to here, it's a 30-year. If it only goes to here, it's a 25-year. If it goes all the way in, it's a 20-year. A 20-year shingle is discontinued. So is that a good thing to note just because you know it? Yes, it is. Is a discontinued 3-tab do you any good to an insurance company? No.
I was gonna say the only good that I could think of if they were gonna pay for a new roof is
Not on a 3-tab.
not on a 3-tab.
And we're gonna explain why in a minute,
Okay.
but not on a 3-tab. And here's why they have to on an architectural. Okay. So though you see me using this shingle gauge right here on a 3-tab, and it tells me it's a 20-year shingle. 20-year shingles haven't been made since 2004. They're all 25 and better. Okay. It's a little bit thicker. And what changes is basically the colors. The insurance company don't care about colors. The sizing of a 3-tab shingle has not changed. From a 20 to a 25 to what's now a 30. Hasn't changed. However, on an architectural shingle, you see me using this tape measure. You'll never see me use a shingle gauge on an architectural, even though it does have a measurement for it. It's crap. It does you no good, in my opinion. What you're going to measure on an architectural shingle is the width of the shingle and the exposure of the shingle. Because when these become discontinued, what changes is the sizing. So what's that do? Well, this is a perfect example where a roofer came into a homeowner and tried to do the repair that the insurance company provided. And they didn't have a leak beforehand, but they have a leak now because these shingles, as you can see, where I have old and new, see how they overlap in a bad way? They create a gap. Where's my picture of the gap? There's a picture of that. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell in the pictures, but it overlaps. So, quick little story I want to tell you so that you can understand this. At least it helped me understand this. How about that? You guys may already understand it. I'm slower than you. Leave me alone. It was a year and a half before I had a first build have a leak problem. So I've been doing this for a year and a half. I'm like, this is amazing. I never have a, and then I got a phone call. This is literally 3 days after we built one, and this was a massive house, like big commission check. And I ain't got my final check from them yet. So I'm like, I need to handle this right now. So I go up there and I go into the room, in their laundry room, and it's got the drywall just looks like it's about to cave in on itself. I'm like, and it was one day of rain, like one night. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go up there and see a hole the size of my body in the roof. I'm like, okay, measure it out. That's where this is. So I'm going to go up on the roof in this area. So I get up there and I look and I'm like, I don't understand why this is leaking. Like it's just a section of shingles and I see no problems. So I'll call up my project manager. I'm like, hey man, I'm going to need you to come out here with me and figure out what's up. So he gets in the attic while I do a water intrusion test, which is me trying to sound really cool. It means I just ran a hose over it. Well, he's in the attic looking, and he's a good person, so he has an iPhone, so we can FaceTime. And I'm sitting here looking at it. He goes, whoa, 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 stop, stop, stop. I pull up, and I'm just pouring on. It'd be like me pouring it in the middle of this table and water going through the table. Like it'd make no sense. And he goes, I found it. It's coming through now. I'm like, bro, shut up. No, it's not. I'm like, he's underneath it. I trust him, but what he's telling me, I literally can't comprehend. I'm like, prove it. So I make him do it phone. I'm sitting there looking at it. I'm like, oh crap. And it is pouring out of this nail hole. So he hammers that nail up. It was put in the right place. The shingles were laced properly. Like there's no explanation for why this thing caused the problem that it caused, especially to the extent of what it caused. Like he was there saying I found it and I didn't believe him. Like I couldn't comprehend it. From that day forward, I'm like, oh, so that can really cause a problem. And guess what? This little gap was causing a problem. So they tried to take a shingle that was discontinued and repair it with a new shingle that is of a different size. So because the new shingle is wider and longer, it creates this overlap. So rather than these shingles being laced in nice and tight, there's just this whole lace where water just kind of started creeping in because it wasn't a sealed unit anymore. Like I said, a roof is not waterproof. Just made to stack up as many layers as it can. And if your very first layer is not stacked up evenly and there's gaps, you're going to have leaks. Period.
So this house wasn't a new roof that was put on. This was
Insurance only paid, yeah. So they went out. So they had some wind damage. Okay, like it would have been something like this.
Yeah.
So they tried to repair it with the new model shingle, and it did okay until it didn't. So this lasted for about 8 months before it started causing a pretty significant problem, because it took some time for the water to creep in and then get through the underlayment and then get through the decking and then get into their house. So it's not a leak that happened right away, though it could have, it just didn't. And when I went out there, I immediately knew, I'm like, oh, well, they've put in a shingle that's the wrong size. So we had to do some work, and where the other roofing company, just took like $800 or whatever it was from the homeowner, caused a problem, we got the entire roof replaced. Because if it's discontinued, it's essentially unrepairable. Because you cannot get the same size material anymore, so it can't be done.
It's discontinued, but still technically not out of code.
Correct. Yeah, so well, like I said, in an architectural sense, when they discontinue a shingle, 99.999% of the times, they're going to change either the width or the exposure, like one or the other. Like there's actually 2 manufacturers that are super proud of how large their shingle is, because one bundle covers more of your roof. So you have to buy less of their product to replace your roof than you do the competitors. So that's actually a selling point for some. So, but very, 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 very rarely do they, and my opinion, they do it on purpose for this reason. This was my assumption, but very rarely do they discontinue a product and not change the size of it, unless it's a 3-tab. Does everybody follow me?
No different than the carport.
Yep. So are you ever going to know all the discontinued shingles that exist? Absolutely not. However, you will keep with you a list of current shingles. And if the measurements you get are not current, well, guess what? It's discontinued. Now, there's only a handful of manufacturers, but the way you learn is by the strip on the shingle, and we'll get there. But so everybody following so far? Okay. So we did a little bit of this a minute ago, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. Code decking versus bad decking. And in Utah and Colorado, this is super big for you guys, because a lot of times in Colorado, we try to submit to insurance rotten decking, and they're not going to cover that. Code decking, insurance is going to cover. Okay. So this far left is what you call space decking. There's a space in between the decking. Again, roofers, think real hard. Okay. If I'm lacing and nailing in these shingles, the odds of me needing at least somewhere along here to nail some in between here is going to be pretty good, i.e. this no longer works. Now, board decking or plank decking where there's no spaces in between, that's actually awesome. So this is never going to go out of code. This is 10 times better than OSB, but it's way more costly. So shocker, builders don't use it. So then you're going to have your OSB decking. Once again, code is 7/16 or half, but the majority of it is going to be called 7/16. If it's thinner than that, it's not code. If it's not up to code, insurance pays for it, assuming they're buying the rest of the roof. If the roof's in perfectly good condition and they got space decking, sorry, Charlie.
How do you know the size of the decking without pulling the shingles?
I'm going to show you shortly. There's one way you do it as part of your ladder photos, which I'm going to show you when we get to our inspection section. Look at that. God, I should be a poet. And then you can also go in the attic. Yep. So like when you have space decking, to know that for sure, you're more than likely going to have to go in the attic. But when you do that ladder photo, you're going to see that you have some type of board decking, because this at the very bottom where you look is going to look the same as this, but they're going to look totally different in the attic. And you'll essentially get in the attic and you go, oh, there's a huge space in between there.
And how long ago was space decking used?
Oh, bro, it's been a fat minute. That's going to be on an older home, like significantly older. So couldn't tell you how long ago. Not that good. And then once again, rotten decking. And if you look, where is it always rotten? Well, that was around a pipe jack boot. This here brought up some wall flashing, like that problem when you're talking about the chimney. You're almost never going to build a roof and not see this around a chimney. Chimneys are just inherently leak monsters. They just are. And it's almost always a PTSD for homeowners. My chimney's always leaked every time I get a roof. Well, that's because they probably didn't install the flashing properly or install ice and water underneath the flashing.
What do they call it when they make like make a valley there?
Mm-hmm.
What's that? There's a certain term for it.
Valley.
I thought there was like a special for the chimney specifically, like they put a valley there just to.
Oh, a cricket?
Is that what it's called? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we're gonna you'll see a cricket here in a minute. Okay. Last thing, important thing to know about a roof is roofies. Okay. I want you guys taking a lot of roofies. I want you taking a lot of roofies. Okay. If you're taking roofies, it means you're making money. Now, I feel I need to explain to you what a roofie is. We all know what a selfie is. It's a selfie on a roof. Okay. If you're standing on a roof, you're making money. So if you ever hear me say, where are your roofies at? Now, when I very first said this, Josh was like, Marcus, you can't say that. I was like, I kind of get it. But then everybody on the team started doing it. I'm like, everybody's taking roofies. Suck it up. And I actually know there was a guy who did some training with us who's from Florida. He's like, man, I got people out in Florida doing it now. I'm like, yes. Nationwide, roofies. So anyways, questions? Got any?
No, sir.
Utah, Colorado, questions?
All good.
All good? You sure? Okay. If you have a question about this like in 5 minutes, it's too late. I'll actually fire you. Just kidding. All right, we'll move on. So this is one for me that's massively important. So I'll tell you, like, I'm honestly pretty solid sales guy as far as like I just have natural sales ability. Like it's in my family. It's like I think pretty much everybody sells in my family. It's what we do. But for me, if I don't know why I'm doing it or how I can help somebody, I'm literally the worst you'll ever meet. Yeah, like I'm telling you. So I tried to dive into this as much as I possibly could in the very beginning and tried to learn. But like in my opinion, I sucked until I felt and knew in my heart that if they met some other dude or me, I was a better guy for him. And until I know that, I don't think I can help them. So to me, I need to know that I'm going to help you better than anybody else you're going to see. Because if I can help you better than anybody else you can see, I have the right to help you. And I'm also helping you. Because before that, I was like, I know I can make a lot of money doing this. But if I'm only putting on your roof because I can make some money, I don't feel good. That's just me. Okay? So you need to know why you're doing this. And in my opinion, that's got to be bigger than a paycheck. Now, this is where some guys think I'm unrealistic. Well, let me explain. If I come to a place of employment, I've got the money part worked out. I already know that if I succeed or if I do well, then I'm going to make money. So if I'm at a job, I'm not worried about the money. I made that decision to even come to the job. So you hopefully are also in that same scenario. You should already know that you're here and that the money is 100% will be handled, assuming you do your job well. Okay. And I've been in commission roles for well over 20 years. So I know that if I don't succeed, I don't get paid. With that being said, I literally don't worry about it. I do not think about a paycheck other than when I sign the paperwork from very first. Just being real. Okay. So are you doing what's best for your homeowner? Meaning, are you the guy that's doing this because it's all the insurance would pay for, and then later on you get a leak? That's not doing the right thing for the homeowner. That's not having a good why, in my opinion. Okay. And also, in my opinion, money has a stopping point. Like, I'll get to the point where I have enough money. Haven't yet. I'm sure I'll get to that point. I'll never stop having a need to help someone. That will never go away. It just won't. And that's actually why I do what I do now. Because I can only help so many people, like physically in time. But if I do a good job of training you guys where you guys can help, the amount of people I can help essentially is unlimited. That's literally why I'm doing this versus still selling, because I actually like selling. And I'm pretty good at it. I suck at this. Sorry. Okay. So an example of knowing your why, again, in my humble opinion, is John 10:10. It's my favorite scripture of all time. Jesus came so that we may have life and have it more abundantly. I think it had been really hard for him to do all that he did if he didn't know what it was going to do. I think if he's just like, hey, you're going to bear the burdens of the entire world, and didn't know why, I think it'd probably been pretty hard for him to do. I say that because, in my opinion, if you're not doing this for your homeowners, when you've been out all day long and it's 100 degrees and you're on your second polo because you dang sure sweated through your first one already and you stink really bad, or even in the fresh air, you can smell your armpits, you better have a good reason for it. And also, you're touching that really hot roof with your delicate hands. Okay, at least my hands are delicate. So, someone who knows their why to a championship level, once again, I know car things. Hopefully, you guys are fans of Formula One, or at least Netflix fans, and you've watched the series Drive to Survive. Yeah? Yep. Okay, so you're at least there on that one. All right. So, does anybody know who this is? It is a little bit of a cheat at the top left corner. So this is Red Bull, Max Verstappen. Okay, this guy here, his goal, win, period. Like, it's not money. He is sickeningly determined. He doesn't have feelings about anything other than winning, period. As does Red Bull as a team. And he is by far the best driver that ever existed, in my opinion. But also, this team is an unreal team. They are just stupid. So this is them setting the record for one of their pit stops. Last year, their average pit stop time, so in other words, their best, their worst come together, only one team was able to even beat once on their best. So they are almost 0.8 seconds better than everybody at all. Like, it's only 0.8 seconds. In this world, that's huge. That's everything.
That adds up.
That's
So
everything.
the lap is 7 to
100%. Yeah, so their average last year was just over 2 seconds when everybody else's average was 3.3.
Yeah,
So then they were like, you know what? Honda, you're great. Your engines are winning, but I think there's some more in it. So they do their own engines now. And then he probably works out harder than anybody you've ever seen. But if you were to see him, you would not think that he works out, because he only works out things that help him handle the G's inside of a car. Like, he doesn't care. Another example of what he does that, to me, a lot of guys aren't going to get onto. Earlier this year, his car broke down. And in the same race, so did 2 other drivers. And they all broke down within a couple laps of each other. The other guys, they retired, never saw them again for, until next race weekend or whatever. This old boy was back in the pits talking with his engineers before his car even made it back. Then when his car made it back, he took his engineers, he's figuring out the problem right then. The race is still going on. This ain't happening and we got to win. I got to fix this. And that's something that, if you have a why, you'll be willing to look at the things you're doing wrong and deal with it versus, I don't want to admit that I did something wrong. Because in all honesty, we have a really hard time looking at ourselves in a negative manner. So, is your why big enough to figure out what you did wrong? And when it is, you basically win all the time and you become max. So another guy who, in my opinion, and I've just used this because obviously I agree with all of these things, right? I do not agree with electric cars because I agree with these things. You can't agree with these things and agree with electric cars. Like if I agree with this, I can't agree with this. Do we all understand that? Okay. So I don't agree with electric cars myself. However, are you guys aware that all of his patents, and I mean all of it, from the machinery to the car itself, there's nothing in Tesla that isn't an open patent?
Meaning can't be used by somebody else.
No, meaning you can use it.
Right.
Meaning you can use it.
Can be taken and resold, or what is it?
Mm-hmm. You can take what they do, and if you do it better, no problem. So normally you get a patent for the exact opposite reason, right? So like we all remember Yetis when Yetis first came out, and like Yeti was the only thing you could have. It was literally their patent had expired for 6 minutes, and how many different, like now everything's a Yeti, right? He from the get-go is like, I don't care. Again, I don't agree with the electric car thing. But however, his why, he truly believes in it, one of the richest guys. And he did what would essentially be an ignorant business decision. Because he truly believes in it. So, meaning, what situation are you going to come into like this? Well, you're going to come in a situation where you've had a bad day, a bad week, a bad whatever. You ain't had a sale in a fat minute. You finally get someone to let you on the roof. You get on the roof, and the roof's going to be fine. And you're going to have to go down and say, your roof's actually fine. You have no problems. Have a great day. And you're not going to want to do that. You're going to be like, let's just sell it. But it's not the right thing to do. And when you come down and you do the right thing, they're going to go, you know what? I really appreciate you. I trust you. Will you go check out my son's house? I've almost never come down and told somebody that they didn't have a problem and not immediately got a referral. Almost never. So do the right thing. Give away your patents. Know your why. So some examples of knowing your why. And I would suggest that these are written down. So these are mine. And I personally love accountability against me. I love to make people accountable if they want to be accountable. So here are some of mine. And I have many more, but I'd bore you. So to have an increasing relationship with God and glorify him in all that I do. Hopefully I do well. To never have to tell my wife no. Now, we'll be honest. That one's a little money oriented. Okay. So like the other day, she was looking for watches. Like, cool, go find a watch. Let me know. And that'll be your birthday gift or whatever. She's like, hey, while I was there, also found some rings. I'm like, sent you for a watch. Now you want watch and rings. So anyways, so that one is a little bit money driven, but at least it's not my money. So it counts. Bring awareness of God's word and promise to business. I think more people should, literally the Bible is an instruction manual for everything, not just Sunday mornings. Lead us well, to lead well in all that is put before me. So when you guys, like, truly give everything I have for you guys. Even though I've done this thing 100 times, I literally prep every night for the next day. So when I go home today, I will go through all my stuff again and prep myself again. I have to do this well to help you guys. That's my job. Okay. And truly help all that have been put before me. That doesn't just mean if you guys have a problem outside of work, I'm here. My job is to help and serve, period. Because like I said, this is self-development in disguise. If you have a self problem, even if you think I'm only doing it selfishly, you will succeed more if I help you personally. So these are just some of my whys. That's why I do what I do. So when I'm up super late at night practicing something that I've already practiced 100 times, that's why. If it was about money, for me at least, it wouldn't work. So what's yours? Do you have one? Have you thought about it? If you haven't, hopefully you're thinking about it. And there's two that if you want to kind of look into this, that go into this way better than I do. There's actually one as far as a book. I'm a big book guy. Know Your Why by Simon Sinek. It's a phenomenal book. If you're not a reader, it's a good one to read. But also Simon Sinek has a little 18-minute TED Talk about Know Your Why. There's also one that if you're a Schwarzenegger fan or not, he has a little 18-minute video as well that you can look it up. It's the speech that broke the internet. It's very similar. He calls it vision, but same thing. And Arnold's is actually pretty good. So there you go. Hope you have one. If not, start getting it. Now, this is a really, 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 really big one. And most people do not do this. And those that do it don't do it right or only do very few parts of it. And that's goal setting. So how many of you, I want to see you guys for this question. All right. Turn all your cameras on there, fellas. How many of you have goals? By show of hands. Okay. So those of you that raised your hand,
Oh, apologies. I was looking at it.
oh, you got a goal as well. Okay. So, see, I should have just taken, I knew I was about a minute ahead. So those of you that said you have a goal, is it written down? Okay. Till you have it written down. If you have a goal and it's not written down, it's not a goal. It's a hope or a dream. If you do not write it down, it is meaningless. And here's why I can say that. Because I used to have a jerk face mentor of mine that told me this for years. I'm like, bro, I got goals. I'm good. I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone. And literally just kept telling me, write it down, write it down, write it down, write it down. I kept not doing it. Literally the first year I wrote it down, $35,000 more money in a year. And I haven't gone backwards since. Literally just writing down my goals, I made $35,000 more. Always been on commission for a very long time. And I'm pretty old. So since the food is here, you Colorado and Utah guys, we're going to go ahead and we'll take 30 minutes. So that means at 35, come back. So you can just mute yourselves, mute your video, or you can log off, come back, whichever way you want to do it. But you will see us back. I'll leave this open in 35 minutes. Okay? And I keep looking at the computer, but I should probably look there. That's weird. Sorry. All right. You guys have any questions or anything? Are you good to